complain about because it wasn't good enough. Luke Jones joins us here. He will be on the backfields in Owings Mills with all things leftover turkey and pumpkin pie. Hopefully get me some eggnog as the Miami Dolphins visit Baltimore on Sunday, but plenty of residue from Sunday's win over the Cincinnati Bengals. Luke, we've seen a lot of strange things in the Harbaugh administration, probably nothing stranger than the Belichick plays up in New England a couple of years ago, but this rare, weird, hold everyone. I mean, it kind of looked like a scene out of Slapshot at the end with Sam Cooke, and then in the locker room, everybody has to explain it, and we've tried to explain it away, but it's a legitimate football play. Now, whether it should be or shouldn't be remains to be seen once they get a hold of the rule books, but perhaps in the offseason, someone will want to change this rule, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing you could say, I mean, you can't, there's already a rule against holding, so it's not as though they were penalized for holding. I think the big issue is, does there need to be another play after a safety? Do you need to have at least a kickoff? And I think that's maybe the one amendment you could make here. But this is what the Ravens tried to do at the end of Super Bowl 47. It's just they didn't execute that quite as well. They didn't hold the 49ers quite long enough where Sam Cooke had to step out of the back of the end zone, and there was, still a second left, and they had to have the free kick, and Josh Bynes made the tackle, and the rest was history. They won the Super Bowl. But this was executed much better than that from the standpoint of they held everybody, and Sam Cooke was able to run out the clock. So, I mean, you could talk about whether it's ethical. I mean, it was legal. The holding was illegal, but there wasn't anything nefarious about it. I know, based on some of the reaction I read from the Cincinnati locker room, I don't think anyone was complaining about it. You could talk the same way. Is it ethical? Is it the spirit of the game to take 3 or 4 knees at the end? And we've been seeing that for decades. So, I don't have any issue with it. I think it was a smart play. Why would you try to punt the ball? Why would you give them a chance to A, set up a return, or B, have a chance at a Hail Mary where they could throw a flag, anything like that. So I thought this was really smart coaching from a guy who has been one of the best special teams coordinators in the NFL for a long time, and in John Harbaugh, of course, a former special teams coach himself. So I thought it was really interesting to watch, even going back and looking at the replay. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, it looked like a brawl, something from WWE. I don't know, but at the end of the day, it worked out well, and it's almost fitting, based on the way the Ravens have made things difficult on themselves all year long, that this was that rare occasion where a penalty worked to their favor after so many hurting them over the course of the season.
Well, if you wonder why holding is illegal, that play would be a great example of nothing would ever get done if you could hold, right?
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, as much as people talk about, you could call holding on every play. That's what John Madden said for years and years, and that's true, but you could really see how things change when it's that blatant. And frankly, it's the same way for defensive holding. I mean, it's why defensive linemen can't just sit there and hold an offensive lineman all day long either. I mean, it just completely would bog down the game. But really interesting to see that play out the way it did. And I know got headlines. I mean, it was still, even as of Monday morning, still a big main headline on ESPN as far as recapping a lot of the action from the weekend. So
it makes for a great highlight, right? Because it's something you don't ever see.
Yeah, I mean it's a blooper type highlight because what was funny was hearing the broadcast. Ian Eagle and Dan Fouts initially were saying, well, the Bengals aren't rushing the punter. Well, the reason why is because they were being held the entire time. So it was definitely funny to see. But again, the only change I would really say there that you could see from the league would be forcing a team to have to kick off after the safety. But other than that, I mean, we've known for years a game can't end on a defensive penalty, but this was an offensive penalty, and games can end on that all the time, whether it's with the penalty outright or a 10-second runoff. So this is a situation that the Ravens used to their advantage.
Pretty decent afternoon after I got home from the Ravens game to sit around on Sunday night and watch football. I am not going to even pretend that I was awake during the overtime. I was not. I tried. I barely made it to overtime. I saw Kansas City tie it up. I saw the kickoff, and I just looked at Kitty, and I'm like, I'm not going to make it. I'm just not going to make it. I know I came down to the end. I've seen the highlights of the ping and the field goal and all that stuff that went on in Denver. This affects the Ravens, right? I mean, who the Ravens would see if they can win this division would be probably one of those two teams, right?
Well, I mean, right now, I believe with Houston losing, I think the Ravens, as it stands right now, would be the number 3 seed, believe it or not, which is just hilarious when you think about what that AFC West has looked like. Although now, with Denver having lost, they're 7-4. I mean, the Ravens and Texans technically just a game behind them, but it does speak to some of the mediocrity that we're not just seeing in the AFC North, but in the AFC South, which is nothing new. Let's face it, we've seen that for a few years now. And I still think the interesting team to watch there is Tennessee at this point with that offense.
Well, they're getting better. It's obvious they're a better team in Week 10 than they were in Week 1.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, Marcus Mariota, we've talked so much about Dak Prescott and some of the other young quarterbacks, and Derek Carr, certainly what he's been able to do in Oakland the last, really coming on over the last year or so. But I think getting back to the Ravens, you look at this playoff picture. I mean, they or Pittsburgh are going to be in this. We know that. Cincinnati's done now. It's not mathematically.
Somebody's got to win the division, right? I mean, somebody
you have to win the division. I mean, is there a possibility? There could be enough. I mean, you would certainly think that first wild card is absolutely going to go to the AFC West. I mean, you look at Kansas City now; they're 8-3. Oakland's 9-2. So those two teams are in great shape. But after that, look at Miami right now, who the Ravens are going to see on Sunday. I mean,
we lose to Miami, but you'll be sending Miami to Pittsburgh because if you lose to Miami, you've now put yourself in an incredible position to not win the division. I mean, this is a huge, huge week against a team that's a lot better than I think any of us thought they were going to be.
They are. And, I mean, they're not a juggernaut because, you look at it, they've won 6 in a row. The last 5 of those have been by a single possession. Some of those games, they probably had no business winning, but hey, to their credit, they found ways to win. And then on Sunday, they had a big lead on San Francisco and almost blew it. So, but this is a Dolphins team that has been centered around the run big time. Now, they were missing, I believe, 3 starting offensive linemen in Sunday's game. That sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Sure.
But they were able to do enough with throwing the football. I mean, Ryan Tannehill, as someone that I have not been a big fan of him whatsoever, he's playing pretty well, and it seems like Adam Gase has been able to get through to him to play more efficiently. I mean, he's not going to hurt you throwing the deep ball, but his accuracy has improved, and they've had that really good running game with Jay Ajayi that they've gotten on a roll here. So at 7-4, I mean, you're right. I mean, even 6 weeks ago, you looked at that one as the last easy game on the schedule for the Ravens, and I don't think there's going to be anything easy about this. I mean, I think it's a favorable matchup because of the way that the Dolphins do lean on their running game, and we know the Ravens are best equipped to stop the run and have been that way all year long. Dallas game notwithstanding, and I guess the Jets game you could throw in there. But this still isn't going to be a layup for the Ravens whatsoever. And to what you just said, you lose this game come Sunday, then you kind of put Pittsburgh in the driver's seat, knowing that one remaining game between these teams is at Heinz Field. So this is a really important game, and let's face it, all of them are important the rest of the way. I think other than the New England one, which you kind of view as the same way as the Dallas one, yeah, you want to win. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you don't go up there and try to give everything you can, but I think most of us realistically look at what this football team is right now, and even though the Patriots had the scratch and claw big time against the Jets, I think you still look at that one and say, that's probably going to be a loss. But the rest of those games that remain, the remaining 4, especially the 2 home games, Miami and then after New England, they'll play Philadelphia at home. Those 2 you have to have. There's no doubt about it. If not, really makes it tough sledding for Week 16 and 17 going to Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, who is going to be out of it at that point. But I think you still have to be weary of a division rival who will have a chance to knock out one of their divisional foes. So I think you look at this game Sunday with Miami. It's just it's another one of those must-win situations. We know the Ravens probably aren't going to run the table, but this is one of those that you feel, man, if you can't get this one, hard to like their chances in the final
Well,
month.
if the Ravens run the table and end the season 11-5, there's no disputing that they're a very good team, right? And at this point, no one thinks they're a very good team, including
they've
all the people.
No evidence that they're capable of doing something.
Okay, but then there's the Dolphins winning 6 in a row, and it's Sue making a play at the 2-yard line. I mean, a lot of these victories. You talked about Kansas City winning the game. They were down 8 points with a minute left to go in the game in Denver, and found a way to scrap it out. Kind of reminded me of the Ravens miracle game there in Denver, because Denver doesn't lose at home very often at all. And you see the difference between perceived good teams and perceived bad teams, and where the Ravens fan base is with this team and giving their tickets up and not showing up for the game. And I mean, tickets were $20 on the internet on Sunday morning before the Bengals game. It's very, very clear there aren't hanging purple string lights here and illuminating the city in purple for a 6-5 football team right now. But it really is. There's a malaise. I think throughout sports, we could talk about the Terps and we could talk about the Orioles not selling tickets, but that it's extended to the Ravens at this point for tickets that are already sold, that there would be that many empty seats, and it was kind of chilly on Sunday. I got a chill in my bones. I underdressed for the game. I thought it'd be a little warmer because it's been nice in general, but I don't know that there's any energy here locally for anyone to think that this football team can win football games in January. Now, whether they can or can't, that remains to be seen. The perception is they can't.
Yeah, and I mean, look, you're going to feel about a team the way that you feel, but getting back to your original point, when you're talking about tickets already sold, and it's one thing if you're look. At the end of the day, it's a huge investment that's made.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, you look at how much people spend on tickets, merchandise, concessions, all of that. I mean, it's not cheap, and some people have just made the choice that with HDTV and the holidays coming up,
I could be a huge Raven fan for free and just stay home. Right, exactly.
Yeah, and that's fine. But at the same time, we've seen for a long time here that there is a big enough fan base that there shouldn't be any issue filling a stadium. And announced attendance was 70,500. I mean, that's it's between that and 71,000 every week. I mean, we that doesn't tell us anything, but you can see the purple seats that are visible, and it lends. I don't want to say validity, because the Orioles certainly had things that they should have done much better that would have impacted their attendance. Right up there, starting with season tickets going out as late as they did last offseason. But it kind of, on the heels of seeing that, with the fact that the Orioles made the postseason, it does, it raises some red flags. It's disappointing. I'm not blaming any one individual. Again, it's up to you what you're going to do with your fandom. And at the same time, this is a football team that is flawed, but it's 6-5, and they have a heck of a chance to try to win this division.
But it's almost like 6-5 isn't good enough for some people. For some people, if you're not 9-2, if you're not number one or having a chance to be number, I don't know what you want. It's a very competitive league. There's a lot of 6-5 going on.
I think you're right that it isn't good enough. But at the same time, when you have that kind of a standard, you're really not going to enjoy sports nearly as much as you should. I mean, look, we talk about this, and I haven't been. I'm not Mr. Purple-colored glasses talking about this Ravens team. I've talked about its flaws. I wrote about its flaws Sunday night at WNST.net, talking about the fact that they took care of business, but it's the same flawed formula that they've used all year, and wondering whether that's going to be good enough ultimately. But it's gotten them to 6-5 at this point. Would you like to see them score more touchdowns? No doubt. I mean, they're right at the bottom in touchdowns scored this year. So I mean, that's that is frustrating to see. But they have a hell of a kicker who had almost a Zach Britton-like effect that we saw with the Orioles, and the difference with them becoming a postseason team. And maybe Justin Tucker can kick the Ravens to the postseason, kick them to a division title. And we've talked about this defense being not 2000-esque, but it's still really good. And again, this goes back to what you see as far as perception around the league, and you just made the point a few minutes ago. Everyone wants to be Dallas. There's no doubt. Everyone wants to be New England. You want to be that team that only has 1 or 2 losses at this point in time. And the Ravens clearly aren't that, and I don't think the Ravens are particularly close to that. But that said, you look on the flip side, and Cleveland's one example, but take a look at plenty of other teams. The Jets are 3-8 right now. Think about where the Ravens were a year ago at this time. The Bengals are 3-7-1. Jacksonville 2-9.
The Bengals are Browns are 0-12. I mean, think about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, and again, even if you don't want to, the Browns are a pretty special level of stink at this point. But I mean, the Bears 2-9. I mean, and look, I'm not saying that those are the standards. I'm just saying that things could be a heck of a lot worse. And at the same time, and this isn't to give a pass to Ozzie Newsome or John Harbaugh, I've written plenty criticizing those individuals and things that this organization hasn't done nearly as well over the last few years, starting with not drafting as well as you'd like. I mean, Kamale Correa, their second-round pick, was a healthy inactive on Sunday. That's a problem. That's something that you don't like seeing. But at the same time, this team's also less than 4 years removed from winning a Super Bowl, and if they do win this division, and that's still a big if, because Pittsburgh is going to have a lot to say about that with these two teams tied entering Week 13. If they do, then things look better from a perception standpoint. Yeah, it's the postseason only 2 of the last 4 years, but when you consider some of the droughts that you see elsewhere, and when you consider that that Super Bowl ring that they own right now is still pretty shiny, it's not as though it was a long, long time ago. It makes you feel a little bit better. So, again, at the end of the day, fans are going to do what they want to do. I say this to you all the time. It is up to the individual fan, their level of participation and financial commitment. But for people that are constantly, whether it's tweets or Facebook, whatever it might be, for people to
if you hate Joe Flacco, you're not a Ravens fan.
Is how are they going to get themselves out of this mess? And look. This offense, if you want to describe the offense as a mess right now, go ahead. I mean, when you've scored fewer touchdowns than everyone in the league other than the Houston Texans, then that's pretty deserving. But when you're talking about an overall mess being 6-5 and you're waiting to see who's going to be held accountable when you're 6-5 and tied for first place entering the month of December, that might be the time to pump your brakes and say, all right, some things need to change, some things need to improve. There's no doubt. They need to find some better football players, and they certainly. I think you can make an argument that they need to revamp this offensive coaching staff. Maybe bring in a hotshot, offensive-minded kind of assistant that maybe is young, maybe has some new ideas, can get Joe Flacco playing at a higher level, get this offensive line straightened out. I'll hear all of those things, but some of the doom and gloom that you hear, that you wonder is if that's a direct reflection of seeing so many empty seats on Sunday. Just take a step back and realize that this is still an organization that has been really, really successful over pushing close to 2 decades now. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater just because last year was brutal and this year it has just been okay. I mean, that's still that still pales in comparison to some of the bad situations you see around the league.
Well, and to your point, do you like football? Is this fun for you, or is this something for you to bitch about every Sunday? Yeah. I mean, the team...
And by the way, the latter, that holds true for some people, whether it's sports, politics, whatever. I mean, there are some people that, frankly, are happy complaining about stuff. I can't live in that world. To borrow an expression from Buck Showalter, but there are people who feel that way.
Yeah, and they are a couple of wins away and some decent fortune from hosting a home playoff game where they will be a favorite against the Chiefs or the Broncos or the Dolphins or whomever it might be at that point, and could be playing in Week 2 of the playoffs. I don't know what more you would want to squeeze out of a season after Thanksgiving than being in first place with your season on the line, with a chance to play a couple of home games against teams that you could beat, and a chance to go to Pittsburgh against a weakened Steelers team and win on Christmas Day. It's all sitting there, as Brian Billick once said. The fun is all sitting there. Are they going to beat the Patriots? I doubt it. Are they going to beat the Patriots or go out to Oakland and win in January? I doubt it, but I can very well envision them still playing football on January 10th.
Yeah, I mean, you get into the tournament and you see what happens. I mean, it was right around this time 4 years ago when the Ravens began their slide, right? Remember they were 9-2, and then they lost 3 straight games, and they fired Cam Cameron, and the offense was looking like a mess. The defense wasn't very good.
Well, Denver came in here and kicked their ass.
Yeah, no one at that point, when they got their butts kicked by Denver in Week 15. And
when Joe Flacco was planking, right? Exactly.
Yeah, everyone remembers Joe Flacco throwing the pick and lying face down on the turf at M&T Bank Stadium. No one at that moment, no one in Baltimore had any inkling of optimism that this team was going to win the Super Bowl. Look, do I think that's going to happen again with this team? No. But at the same time, you play it out. You roll the ball out there, and you see what happens. And again, for this team just to have the opportunity, even if they lose 4 of their next 5, and certainly that would be really, really disappointing, where they stand right now, 11 weeks into this thing, they have a chance. And we'll see how that plays out. Again, having a really good defense that isn't perfect, but it's been pretty darn good all year, save for 1 or 2 performances, and having the best kicker in the NFL, those 2 things alone, pretty much alone, have added up to a 6-5 start. So 6-5, we'll see what that turns into. But to me, it's compelling enough. It's been enjoyable enough to want to keep tuning in every week. And if you're not happy with it, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, yeah, you'd love to be 11-0. You'd love to be 10-1, but sports don't work that way. I mean, the beauty of sports is, to me, you have those rare moments of elation and celebration of winning a championship, sandwiched between years of ultimately being disappointed. I mean, Buck Showalter says this all the time. At the end of the season, there's only going to be one team that's happy, and everyone else is going to be left wanting more. And if your standard is you're not going to enjoy anything unless you're that one team left, I mean, it's just, I don't know what to tell you at that point.
Yeah, I mean, even the Patriots fans are miserable, and all they do is win. You can find Luke out on the back.
Yeah, just to clarify, this isn't a feeling that's exclusive to Baltimore. This happens lots of places.
Yeah, I've been to Cleveland. I'm aware. You can find Luke out on the backfields in Owings Mills all week long. We'll also be watching the Terps taking on Pitt and Oklahoma State this week. I'm going to see the Caps play on Thursday. We got things happening all week, including Zach Orr and Anthony Levine on Wednesday night at Christopher Daniel in Timonium. We'll be swabbing for the bone marrow registry, like my shirt says. Be a lifesaver. Get on the registry. We'll be doing that on Wednesday night with There Goes My Hero in Timonium. Thursday, we move the party up to Carroll County. We'll be in Hampstead at Greenmount Station. I will be eating my crab cakes fried. They are tasty. We're going to be joined by Dennis Pitta. It's his first appearance of the year. Of course, we did a show with Dennis back in the Super Bowl year every week. Dennis now has babies and a wife and a hip and all sorts of things, but he's in good spirits and looking forward to joining us on Thursday night at Greenmount Station in Hampstead. You can find me, Nasty, at WNST.net, anywhere the internet is served, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on Facebook Live, as well as on our YouTube WNSTV channel. Anything you miss is in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day on your mobile device. Download the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear. It's all brought to you by BuyAToyota.com. Morning newspaper comes to you at 7 a.m. every morning to your email inbox. You sign up once. It's free. It's easy. All the box scores, all the standings, all of Luke's blogs, all of our audio, all in one place, all brought to you by PlanetFitness.com. Last but never least, breaking news happens first on the WNST Text Service. That is brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis Kolatzos will be with us on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home, getting you ready for Thursday night football. And the Cowboys are playing again on national TV, so we'll be watching that at a Greenmount Station with Dennis Pitt on Thursday night. So big week, some swabbing, some Ravens, some fun, some crab cakes, some Timonium, some Greenmount Station. It's going to be a big week. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.